Traveling through the world of immortality and chivalry, Shen Ping has been practicing on thin ice for over 20 years, but without golden fingers, he has ordinary qualifications and his cultivation progress is slow. It wasn't until I planned to completely lie flat and marry a wife that I was shocked to find that my way of opening up the world of immortality was a bit wrong. P.S. Completed 10,000 orders of high-quality works such as The Warrior of the Beautiful World and Swallowing the Starry Sky and Signing in for 30,000 years, keywords of the novel. Chongqing starts from getting married without pop-ups. Chongqing starts from getting married. Download the complete set of TXT, and read the latest chapters of Chongqing starts from getting married. Chapter 1. Confessing to Marriage. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1 Confessing to Marriage. Pinger, your roots are average, and you may have no hope of building a foundation in this life. The resources within the clan are limited and cannot supply every member of the clan. After the decision of the clan elders, they are preparing to send you to the Yunshan swamp to follow the Jinyang sect in reclaiming land. Perhaps when you arrive there, you will encounter your own immortal fate. Inside the dim and damp wooden house. The light is like a beam. Shen Ping lay on the table, looking at the half-useless seal script and sighing deeply. The cultivation of the Jinyang sect required a large number of cultivators and laborers. He has 4 types of mixed spiritual roots and ordinary qualifications. The family exchanged him for resources, which is quite normal in the cultivation family. However, 20 years have passed. He not only did not encounter the so-called immortal fate, but also became infected with the venom of demon beasts due to the cultivation of the wilderness, and his body fell ill. He had to use spiritual power to suppress the toxicity every day, and his already slow-growing cultivation completely froze. At the age of over 40, I still practiced 3 layers of qi. It's simply unbearable suffering. As a serious traveler, he can be regarded as a typical negative textbook. But there's no other way. Without golden fingers, he has been practicing on thin ice for over 20 years, deeply realizing the difficulty of cultivating immortals at the bottom level. Bang ka 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 accompanied by lightning passing by, rolling thunder shook the sky. Shen Ping stood up and walked to the wooden window. He opened the window and heard the sound of rain crashing in his ears. Looking at the purple lightning in the sky, he self-deprecatingly said, I don't know which great power is crossing the calamity. Unfortunately, I'm afraid I won't have such an opportunity in my life. Well, after wasting 20 years, it's time to accept my fate. As a traveler, he has always believed that my fate is determined by me, not by heaven. Even the 4 types of miscellaneous spiritual roots have never given up the idea of striving for cultivation. After all, there are countless examples of successful cultivation by seniors with weaker qualifications. Although he didn't have a golden finger, since he was lucky enough to travel to an extraordinary world, his luck should not be low. However, things went against his wishes, and the cruel reality taught him an unforgettable lesson. Try harder. Work even harder. Without qualifications and opportunities, it is ultimately futile and there is no hope. Close the wooden window. This night, Shen Ping didn't have any more painstaking notes, but instead relaxed his mind and body and took a nap. The next day, the rain has stopped. The road outside was muddy, and rainwater gathered into small streams flowing along the ravines formed by the impact. He stepped on the accumulated water and walked through 7 or 8 winding alleys to reach the main road paved with bluestone slabs. There were many monks here, and rows of vendors on both sides of the road looked very lively. Following the main road, he quickly walked into a storefront. Oh, isn't this Tongdao Yu? Rare guest, rare guest. The seductive female cultivator in the shop had loose skin and a buildup of powder on her face, and waves of fragrant air rushed into Shen Ping's nostrils. Tongdao Yu, I would like to ask you. Just started speaking but haven't finished yet. The nun interrupted with a smile, don't worry, I'm sure we'll find a beautiful and fair little girl for you. Isn't everyone here just to get married? Tongdao Yu, I've advised you a long time ago. Since there's no hope of building a foundation, you should focus on cultivating the next generation. If you want to open it up earlier, you might as well build a foundation for your children now. Shen Ping sighed and said, what Tongdao said is reasonable. He handed Matchmaker Zheng a cloth bag which was heavy inside. Matchmaker Zheng opened it and her smile became even brighter. Shen Dao is truly a master of talismans, and being generous in her actions, she said 10 spirit stones are definitely a considerable price for matchmaking. Shen Ping has accumulated a wealth that is not easy. Since he accepts his fate this time, he wants to find a satisfactory wife, preferably one with spiritual root qualifications. There is a high chance that his offspring will have spiritual roots. He spoke out his conditions. The matchmaker hesitated for a moment and said, Shen Dao, it's probably difficult to have spiritual roots. Even the lowest fake spiritual roots are in short supply. The targets they choose for Taoist priests are in the middle stage of qi cultivation, and those with a bit of beauty must be in the later stage of qi cultivation. Shen Ping also knew that it was difficult to find a Taoist priest with spiritual root qualifications. His own strength was too low. Although he could make talismans, his methods of making talismans were relatively rough, and he is still just a low-level talisman master with poor conditions. Zheng Dao, try your best. If you can't find it, you'll have to settle for a mortal woman. The matchmaker once smiled and said, there aren't many other ordinary women in Yunshanfang, but there are countless descendants of cultivators who don't have spiritual roots but are slim and beautiful. You can choose as you please. Don't worry, Shen Dao. I will definitely find a woman who is relatively easy to give birth to spiritual roots for you. Shen Ping arched his hand and said, then please ask Zheng Dao. Leave the shop. He returned home without staying. Yunshan Fang was established by Emperor Jinyang during his pioneering period. Over the past 20 years, its safety has been guaranteed, but the area he is located in is on the outskirts of the Fang city, and there are often incidents of killing and looting treasures. Due to his poverty and lack of good magical tools, coupled with his usual caution, he has been relatively safe in recent years. Decades have passed. There is news from matchmaker Zheng's side. He came to the door again. Arriving at the second-floor room of the storefront, as soon as I entered, I saw a delicate little girl sitting restlessly, pinching her skirt. She was about 20 or 18 years old, with fair and tender skin. Although her appearance could not be called stunning, she was beautiful and beautiful. The matchmaker once smiled and said, how's it going? She looks good, isn't she? Her name is Wang Yun, and her father is a cultivator who practices qi at the 5th level. He was targeted when he went out a while ago and died, leaving her unattended. Although he doesn't have a spiritual root, his body can sense spiritual energy. If he cultivates mortal martial arts, he can easily break through his innate abilities. The most important thing is that he is very obedient. Hear the last sentence. Shen Ping immediately made a decision, it's her. The matchmaker once smiled happily and said, all right, 5 spirit stones. She belongs to you, Shen Dao. When rushing to Ming's wedding banquet, please let me have a few drinks. Shen Ping took out 5 inferior spirit stones and left the shop with the little girl. A wedding banquet will be held in 2 days. The neighbors have all sent out invitation letters. Most of the surroundings of his living room are in the middle and lower levels of qi cultivation. For the sake of his talisman, he has also given face and came to eat the flowing water banquet on the wedding day. At night, a few more candles were lit in the room, much brighter than usual. Although there are specialized lighting crystal lamps for sale in Fangshi, they are relatively expensive. In recent years, Shen Ping has been frugal and dare not extravagantly purchase crystal lamps. Wang Yun sat on the edge of the bed, her body tense under the red veil. Her father had died, and she had no spiritual cultivation. She had no freedom in this Yunshan Fang, and now she only hoped that this cultivator could treat her well. hearing footsteps approaching. She became even more nervous. When the red veil was lifted, she shyly lowered her head and dared not look up at her husband. Shen Ping couldn't help but feel a bit nervous. Although he had read countless films in his previous life, they were all limited to theory and had never really fought in practice. Fortunately, as a cultivator in this life, even if his strength was low, he had no problem getting married. Yunner, it's time we rested. He reached out his hand and landed it on Wang Yun's shoulder. Husband, please have mercy. Ha! Waves of wind blew by. The candle goes out. Soon. Shen Ping finally shed his bitterness in his heart and became a true man. The next day. The sky has just brightened. Shen Ping woke up from a deep sleep, feeling his beloved wife curled up like a kitten in his arms, and a hint of melancholy couldn't help but appear on his face. Starting from today, he will completely abandon unrealistic expectations and honestly accumulate resources for future generations. If future generations do not have spiritual roots, then they will live an ordinary life. Gain rune making experience plus 10, bonus. 0, Fu Shi. First level lower level, 1005/1000, can be broken through. Just as he was about to get up, he suddenly noticed a virtual panel protruding below the corner of his eye, with 4 rows of golden fonts on it. Shen Ping couldn't help but rub his eyes and saw that the virtual panel was still there. He was certain that he wasn't experiencing an illusion due to overwork. Is it difficult? Is this a golden finger? He gradually became excited in his heart, but did not show it, but asked his wife beside him. Yunner, do you have anything in front of you? No. Wang Yun replied shyly, husband, I'm too sleepy. I'll get up and cook for you now. However, Shen Ping turned around. It's still early, let's go to bed for a while. Not caring for his wife. He needs to confirm if this is a golden finger. P.S. The first order has exceeded 10,000. Please collect and read, thank you. P.S. 2. The issue of Lingshire currency was not fully considered when it was written, and it will be solved gradually later. In addition, roast belongs to roast, and those involved in improper remarks can only receive 1-stop service. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Breakthroughs. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2 Breakthroughs. Shen Ping stared fixedly at the virtual panel at the corner of his eye. The golden font on top slowly appears. Gain rune making experience plus 2, Fu Shi. First level lower level, 1007/1000, can be broken through, golden finger. This is definitely my own golden finger. At this moment. After confirmation, Shen Ping was extremely excited. He never expected to travel to the world of cultivation and waste more than 20 years. When he completely accepted his fate and got married, he activated his golden finger. I thought I didn't have a golden finger, but I didn't think the way I opened it was wrong. He straightened up and took a deep breath. Suppressed the excitement. Although Goldfinger was late, Shen Ping had no regrets or complaints. Anyway, he finally had Goldfinger, and his future cultivation once again ignited hope. Husband, I feel a bit unwell and it's really difficult for me to get up. Hear Wang Yun's words. Shen Ping quickly interrupted, Yunner, it's all because my husband doesn't care and hurt you. You can lie down peacefully and get up for my husband to cook for you. Speaking, he quickly dressed and washed up. Then start a fire and cook. The wife's favorability should be related to the effect of double cultivation. Previously, he didn't care about anything else for the sake of experimentation. Now that he knows this, he will have to take care of his wife as much as possible in the future. For a moment. After the fragrant rice porridge was cooked, he took it to the bedside and carefully fed it to his wife. Finish kanji. Shen Ping used spiritual power to nourish his wife's body. Wang Yun's face turned from worry to joy, and her heart was also deeply moved. Previously, when Shen Ping came hard, she thought she had met a cultivator who didn't know how to pity. She was afraid that she would have to endure hardship in the future, but her husband was so careful and even personally took care of him by cooking. Such compassionate cultivators are not common. You should know that she is immortal, and it would have been great if she had not been treated as a slave by a cultivator. Current wife's favorability rating is 80, bonus. 2. See the changes in the virtual panel. Shen Ping's face lit up with joy, but he resisted the urge to continue the ups and downs with his wife and said in a gentle voice, "Yuner, as a new woman, you should rest assured and cultivate your body. Wait until you fully recover before getting out of bed and moving around." Wang Yunru said softly, "I listen to my husband. Clean up the dishes." He couldn't wait to walk to a small compartment inside the wooden house, which was the place for making symbols. Most of the time, he would stay here. The income from daily practice also comes from this source. He skillfully completed a series of processes before refining talismans and seals, such as concentration, calmness, and prayer. Then Shen Ping opened the virtual panel and silently thought to himself. Breakthrough. Bang. The virtual frame trembled slightly. Fu Shi. First level intermediate, 7/10,000, almost at the same time. He seemed to have a vague understanding of talismans. Immediately hold the talisman pen in hand and dip it in the blood of the spirit beast to start sketching spiritual patterns on the talisman paper. Not long after, a low-level seal script was completed in one go. However, Shen Ping's face was very calm. Although he was a first-level lower-level talisman master before, his proficiency in making talismans was very high, with a success rate of over 30%. He often made talismans like he did just now, and there were also frequent occurrences. Next, he changed the materials and prepared to make medium-grade amulets. This type of seal script can be sold for 6 pieces of inferior spirit stones in the local market, but the chance of making it is very low, and only occasionally can it be successfully made with a flash of spiritual light. As the talisman is sketched on special animal skin material paper, the lively spiritual patterns leap onto the paper. Compared to lower-level talismans, this mid-level talisman requires more than 30 lines of spiritual patterns to be sketched on top, without any errors or pauses in the middle. His cultivation of 3 layers of qi requires a great deal of mental and physical exertion. Time slowly passes by. Shen Ping's forehead was covered in a thin layer of sweat. He was fully focused on outlining the spiritual pattern circuit, and in the final stroke, his mind was tense to the extreme. For a moment, the talisman stops. The spiritual pattern circuit of the amulet is completed. Shen Ping took a deep breath and looked at the successfully crafted amulet, his face showing joy. Intermediate level talisman. Only intermediate level talismans can produce intermediate level talismans and seals in one go. If I can frequently make intermediate runes and seals, the speed of accumulating spiritual stones will greatly increase. At that time, I can purchase high-grade detoxification pills to dissolve the toxicity of monsters on my body. His eyes showed anticipation and hope for the future. Half a month has passed in the blink of an eye. During this period, Shen Ping devoted himself to accompanying and caring for his wife, showing great love and affection. Open the virtual panel. Current wife's favorability rate is 100, bonus. 4. Fu Shi. First level intermediate, 607/10,000, 4 times the bonus is the limit of reaching the maximum level of favorability. Each time you earn 2 points, 4 times the bonus is 8 points. The change he made with such hard work was that his success rate in making mid-level talismans skyrocketed, even catching up with his success rate in making low-grade talismans and seals. On average, he could produce a stable talisman with just 3 materials. This made Shen Ping very excited. After all, the high success rate of producing medium-grade seal script meant that he could quickly accumulate wealth. Yuner, stay at home and remember not to go out. I'll go to the local market. I stayed at home for half a month. Shen Ping had to go out because the inventory of talisman-making materials was completely depleted, and spiritual rice, meat, and other items were also consumed. He practiced twice a day, and without nutritional supplements, even a cultivator would feel weak legs and lower back pain. Moreover, Wang Yun also felt overwhelmed and her mental state deteriorated significantly. Husband, be careful when going out. Upon hearing that Shen Ping was going to Fengshe, Wang Yun's face showed concern. Although Yun Shanfang was relatively safe, there were always accidents. In a situation of low strength, every outing was a test of life and death. Don't worry, I will take care of myself. Say it. Shen Ping pushed open the door and walked out. Stepping into the bumpy alleyway again, his entire mental state was completely different, with a shining light in his eyes, unlike before when he was a walking corpse. Shen Daoyu is newlywed and finally willing to go out. Having married a beautiful wife, even if it were me, I would still linger in a peaceful nest. Shen Daoyu really opened up. Encountering familiar neighbors on the road, they all joked about Shen Ping. Shen Ping chuckled a few times without responding, and as soon as he arrived at the main road, he saw two monks walking towards him. Gong Daoyu. Su Daoyu. He quickly respectfully greeted. These two cultivators are a pair of cousins with high cultivation levels. Among them, Gong Daoyu is the only late-stage cultivator. He resides in Hanglu Lane. Hanglu Lane has been relatively safe in recent years, thanks to Gong Daoyu's intimidation. His cousin Su Daoyu is beautiful and tall, and has been admired by many cultivators. Gong Daoyu nodded and left with his sister. In the eyes of the two, Shen Ping was just a low-level talisman who couldn't catch their eye. It was all because he lived in the same alley that he could respond. Shen Ping doesn't care either. In the later stage of qi cultivation, the posture of a strong person is very normal. As soon as we reached the main road, it became lively, and the vendors on both sides were shouting louder and louder. He did not stop but followed the main road all the way to the end, where a tall stone gate stood tall with the three characters Yunshanfang written on it. It is said that this plaque was personally written by a strong member of the Golden Corps. Lower-level cultivators cannot stare at it and may feel dizzy. Enter the stone gate. Shen Ping felt a sense of security rising in his heart. Within this city, few cultivators dared to cause trouble. Since his establishment, there have only been 3 or 4 safety incidents where cultivators were killed. When he first arrived at Yunshan Swamp, he lived in Yunshan Lane. Unfortunately, his health was damaged and his daily expenses skyrocketed. He moved to Hanglu Lane outside the city, but even in Hanglu Lane, rent prices have been rising in recent years. Originally, according to his plan, he would have to move again in a few more years, but now he doesn't need to. On both sides of the main road in Fengshe, there are shops with more grand decoration patterns, and most of them have formations such as gathering spirits and defense. Shen Ping stopped in front of a shop that mainly sells talismans, seals, and magical tools, and then walked in. What do Tao Yu want to buy? The shopkeeper's cultivation level is at the 7th level of qi cultivation. When he saw a low-level qi cultivation cultivator like Shen Ping, his attitude was not indifferent, but he still warmly greeted him with a smile. Shopkeeper, do we accept seal script here? Received. What is the price of a mid-range amulet? Shen Ping said and took out a talisman he had refined himself. The shop owner glanced at me and smiled. I'm a fair old and young man in this small shop. I'll make a lower-grade spirit stone based on the market price of 6 yuan. In the future, if you still have talismans and seals, you can come to me to sell them. No matter how much, I can eat them. The demand for defensive talismans such as amulets has always been high. If you rent a stall outside to sell them, you can sell them for 8 or even 10 pieces of lower-grade spirit stones when the market is good. It was only for the sake of safety and stability that Shen Ping specifically came to the shops in the neighborhood to sell. Take out 5 and hand them to the shopkeeper. Leave the store. Shen Ping's storage bag not only did not contain any more spiritual stones, but also 30 inferior spiritual stones. The reason was that he had purchased 60 materials for making amulets, each of which required 1 inferior spiritual stone. Later, he went to other stores and bought a month's worth of spiritual rice, meat, and other supplementary ingredients. The accumulation in the storage bag is almost bottoming out, leaving only the spiritual stones that need to be used to suppress toxicity in daily life. P.S. Missing chapters are blocked and will be restored after the holiday. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Visit of Danshi. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3 Visit of Danshi. It took less than half an hour to go out. Shen Ping came back, mainly because he was short of money and didn't dare to wander around much. Push open the door. Seeing the happy expression on his wife's face, he smiled. Wang Yun's father went out on a trip to Fall, leaving a shadow in his heart, which is why he was too worried about his safety. However, Hunlu Lane is not too far from the local market. As long as the wealth is not exposed and one is cautious, there will generally be no robbery or repair. Besides, his body was damaged and he needed to suppress toxicity every day. News of his stagnant cultivation had already spread throughout the surrounding alleys, and most cultivators knew that he was a poor ghost with little savings. Taking the risk of intercepting him was purely a thankless effort. That evening, my wife cooked a sumptuous meal. My husband has been working hard all day, so I need to make up for it. Wang Yun's face turned red with embarrassment. As a new married woman, although she had more frequent sexual encounters with her husband, she enjoyed eating the essence and savoring it. However, she was worried that it would affect her husband's cultivation. Shen Ping smiled and took out a book from the storage bag. Yuner, this is a martial arts technique that has the effect of nourishing and strengthening the body. If you don't have a spiritual root, you can cultivate such ordinary techniques. If you can break through innate abilities, you can also extend your life a bit in the future. Wang Yun nodded and took a glance at the martial arts secret script. Her heart couldn't help but feel gloomy. Without spiritual roots, she couldn't cultivate. After half a century, her face would turn pale, and her husband wouldn't be so meticulous in taking care of her. However, fortunately, her husband's aptitude is ordinary, so there is no hope of building a foundation in this life. Perhaps they can still walk together for a lifetime. At night, after eating tonifying meals, Shen Pinglong became skilled and fierce, continuously gaining talisman experience. But after that night, he changed his plan and reduced his daily double cultivation from 5 times to 3 times. Although it would reduce experience acquisition, he had to do so in order not to lose his foundation of cultivation, and his wife's mental state had to be taken care of. When you have accumulated a lot of savings, you must purchase a suitable double cultivation secret technique to assist in cultivation. Shen Ping pondered in his heart. His golden finger is related to double cultivation, so the double cultivation secret technique is a must-have, so as not to damage the essence and blood, and to obtain experience in a healthy and sustainable way. Next, make talismans, double cultivate, and suppress toxicity. Life is fulfilling and happy. Especially with the continuous increase of his experience in talismanship, his success rate in making talismans has risen again, with almost every 2 materials being able to successfully make one. 10 days later, there was a knocking on the door outside. Shen Ping opened the door and saw a stranger cultivator. His heart couldn't help but become alert. Shen Dao Yu, I am cultivator He Qin, who has just moved nearby. I came to visit you on purpose. This is a small token of my appreciation. Please accept it with a smile. Speaking. The cultivator surnamed he handed over a delicate jade vase. Shen Ping glanced at him with a surprised expression and said, He Dao Yu is an alchemist. Inside the exquisite jade bottle is the condensing chi pill. Although it is a low-grade pill, its price is not cheap. There are 2 inferior spirit stones and 1, and inside the jade bottle are 3, worth 6 inferior spirit stones. Just a doorstep visit, that's all. Undoubtedly, He Qin in front of him is mostly an alchemist. I am indeed an alchemist, but I can only refine low-grade pills. He Qin smiled and said with a hint of pride in his tone. Cultivate immortals with 100 skills, and create a magical talisman array. The status of Dan Master is higher than that of Tool Master, Talisman Master, and Array Mage Master. After all, elixirs are an important resource for cultivators as they can rapidly increase their realm mana. However, magical tools, talismans, and formations are only auxiliary means used to enhance the cultivator's ability to protect the path. I'm sorry. He Dao Yu, please come in and have a chat. Shen Ping said politely. He Qin entered the door with a self-proclaimed appearance. This is an insider. Shen Ping introduced Wang Yun. Upon learning that Wang Yun did not have a spiritual root, He Qin did not stop his gaze. Even if a mortal had a stunning appearance, he could not attract the slightest attention of a cultivator. He could not have practiced for 100 years and become a pink skeleton. Poured a cup of clear tea. The 2 of them started chatting, and soon He Qin stood up to bid farewell. And Shen Ping sent him out and gave him a talisman. The reason why it was a medium-grade talisman seal was mainly to show his strength. In the future, if the opponent advanced to a medium-grade alchemist, it would be convenient to invite them to refine pills. Yuner, how have you been practicing your martial arts? Close the door. Shen Ping asked. Wang Yun replied, I have already developed my internal energy. Not bad, progress is fast. Once Yuner breaks through the first class level, we can continue to work hard and strive to have more offspring. Shen Ping jokingly said. Wang Yun blushed and said, I listen to my husband and will work harder to cultivate and break through the top class as soon as possible. He Yin's visit was just a small interlude. Shen Ping quickly resumed his fulfilling spiritual life. Another 10 days have passed. He became more proficient in making talismans and his efficiency increased. In just 20 days, he consumed all the 60 talisman-making materials he had purchased. 36 amulets. My wife is really my lucky fate. He is in a very good mood. Originally, based on the previous success rate, it would be considered good if the purchased materials could produce 20.5 amulets. Now, there are 10 more, which means an additional increase in income. No hesitation. I had lunch that day. Shen Ping went out and came to Fengshe again. Embroidered Spring Pavilion. It's still the same store as before, with a somewhat delicate name. It seems that the owner behind this store is mostly a powerful female cultivator. The shopkeeper's surname is Chen. When he saw Shen Ping, a standard smile appeared on his face. Shen Ping didn't say anything and directly took out 15 amulets and handed them to the shopkeeper. Although he made 30.6 amulets, the other party knew how many materials he had purchased, and a simple calculation would determine his success rate. Such a high success rate inevitably gave rise to some caution, whether it was to win them over or anything else. Shen Ping did not want to trouble. 15 sheets are not too conspicuous. Shen Dao Yu, as usual, these are 90 pieces of inferior spirit stones. If you have any material requirements, you can buy them at our small store. Chen, the shopkeeper, smiled and slightly elevated his judgment on Shen Ping, a low-level chi practitioner in front of him. If he could continuously produce talismans, he should be a mid-level talisman master. I need materials such as flame talisman, sinker talisman, lightness talisman, etc. Shen Ping mentioned some material requirements for medium-grade seal script, and he is preparing to try making other seal scripts. Soon. He spent all the 90 lower-grade spirit stones he had just received. Manager Chen warmly sent Shen Ping out of the store. Subsequently, Shen Ping went to 2 more stores and sold the remaining 20.1 amulets. The spiritual stones he earned only purchased some ingredients and left them in the storage bag. Day by day passed. While maintaining 3 daily double cultivation sessions, his experience in talismanship steadily increased, and his proficiency in making talismans and seals also continued to increase. In addition to amulets, the success rate of other talismans and seals such as flame talismans and light body talismans gradually increased. However, Shen Ping is well aware of the importance of caution. If he goes out too many times, he may be noticed by his neighbors or other cultivators living in the alley. Therefore, even if he has consumed all the talisman materials, he reluctantly does not go out to sell them. Instead, he waits until all the daily necessities are consumed before going out to buy them, and quietly goes to the store to sell them. 6 months later. Current wife's favorability rate is 100, double cultivation bonus. 4. Fu Shi. First level intermediate, 5455/10,000, looking at the virtual panel. A surge of excitement surged in Shen Ping's heart. Under normal circumstances, it would take at least several decades for him to accumulate breakthroughs by constantly crafting symbols. But now it only takes more than half a year. Even the distance from the top-tier talisman is not too far. This is the terror of having golden fingers. In addition to improving his talisman experience, he also accumulated over 500 lower-grade spirit stones, equivalent to 5 medium-grade spirit stones, at a speed that was unimaginable in the past. But Shen Ping knew that for a close to high-level talisman, such a speed of making money was not surprising. At this rate of improvement, my cultivation level will soon become a limit. In the past 6 months, through double cultivation with his wife, his experience in talismanship has rapidly increased, and the success rate of making various mid-level talismans and seals has been increasing day by day. Even some mid-level talismans from the cultivation family are not as good as him. However, the production of medium-grade talisman seals through the 3 layers of qi cultivation is already the limit. To produce high-quality talisman seals, there are requirements for spiritual cultivation, at least in the middle stage of qi cultivation. A bottle of high-grade detoxification pill requires 20 medium-grade spirit stones. It's fast. If you work hard for another 2 or 3 years, you can accumulate them. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Unexpected News. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Chapter 4 Unexpected News. The Yunshan swamp area, which was opened up by Emperor Jinyang, is located in the western part of the Wei Kingdom. It is extremely cold in winter here, and there will be dozens of days of snowfall within a month. However, the harsh climate still cannot stop the bustling of the local market. After all, in the middle and later stages of qi cultivation, cultivators are basically immune to cold and heat. Although the spiritual power in the body of low-level cultivators cannot resist severe cold, they can purchase cold-dispelling talismans to stick on their bodies. Those who are slightly wealthy can purchase robes, fearing no cold at all. This day, snowflakes were flying outside the house. Shen Ping went out again, carrying his well-made medium-grade seal script along the winding alleyway, and arrived at the embroidered spring pavilion in the neighborhood. Shen Daoyu is here. Manager Chen greeted with a smile. In the past 6 months, Shen Ping has not visited the store many times, but the cultivator has a strong memory, and the number of talismans made by Shen Daoyu has been increasing. Occasionally, he also sells flame talismans and light body talismans. Obviously, he is already a skilled and stable first-level intermediate talisman master. Maintaining a good relationship with a mid-level talisman is a mandatory course for a shopkeeper. Shen Ping nodded and took out 25 amulets and 6 flame talismans from the storage bag, handed them to the shopkeeper, and then said, as usual, 60 amulet materials, 30 flame talismans materials, and 20 light body talismans materials. The price he quoted for the required materials is exactly the income from selling amulets and flame charms. It's always like this, almost never earning much spiritual stones from Xiuchuan Pavilion. However, the shopkeeper Chen said, "Shen Daoyu, these materials cost a total of 214 pieces of inferior spirit stones, and you need to pay an additional 40 pieces of inferior spirit stones." Shen Ping frowned and said, "What does Manager Chen mean by this? Are you going to slaughter a loyal customer?" Chen, the shopkeeper, quickly explained, "It's like this. Recently, the prices of talisman and seal materials have slightly increased, but Shen Daoyu don't need to worry. In a few days, the prices of various talismans and seals will also rise. If you don't want to sell this time, you can send it to my small store for now. After the next price increase, I will settle according to the rising price together. As for the materials, you can also use them first. The stored talismans and seals are considered as collateral. What do you think?" Upon reflection, Shen Ping knew that it was Manager Chen showing goodwill. Line. He agreed and asked calmly as Manager Chen took out the materials, "Manager Chen, the price of talismans and seals has always been stable. Why did they suddenly rise? Did something happen?" Chen, the shopkeeper, handed the materials to Shen Ping and glanced outside the shop, whispering, "Recently, Jinyang sect accidentally discovered a huge mineral vein deep in the Yunshan swamp. It's not a spirit stone mine, but a hot gold mine for refining magic tools and treasures, as well as other derived minerals. The deep terrain of the Yunshan swamp is complex, with numerous monsters and a poisonous mist that blocks divine consciousness year-round. Therefore, Jinyang sect needs a large number of cultivators to go and clear the way." Upon hearing this, Shen Ping immediately understood. No wonder the materials and prices of talismans and seals will rise. When he came here to follow in the exploration, he lacked experience and did not prepare a large number of talismans and seals, which led to an accidental erosion by the venom of monsters. Now that mineral veins have been discovered in the depths of the Yunshan swamp, Jinyang sect will inevitably offer heavy benefits to lure Sanxiu to explore and pave the way for mining mineral veins. As expected, the prices of materials such as pills and magic tools will also rise. Especially for the detoxification pill, which is a necessity for pioneering, cultivators will definitely compete to purchase it. The first-order high-quality detoxification pill has the best effect, as it can eliminate over 70% of the monster venom in the Yunshan swamp. The effect of mid-range products is average, and the price is also cheap. He quickly asked Manager Chen. Sure enough. High-grade detoxification pills have also increased, with one bottle rising to 25 pieces of medium-grade spirit stones. This is obviously not good news for Shen Ping, but the increase in the price of talismans and seals is also a comfort. If the increase is relatively large, then the overall situation is still favorable. Unfortunately, his wealth and background are too low. Otherwise, he could have relied on this news to purchase pills, talismans, magical tools, etc. on a large scale, and sell them later to make a profit from the price difference. However, if Manager Chen can reveal this news, I'm afraid the entire neighborhood already knows about it. Leave Xiuchuan Pavilion. He didn't go to other stores to sell anymore. After all, the price of talismans and seals will rise in the future, and selling them at this time would be very profitable. I bought lingmi, meat, and other food and daily necessities. Shen Ping returned to Hanlu Lane. At night, a knock came from outside the house. Open in vigilance. His face showed surprise. It turned out to be Gong Daoyu. This is a rare guest among rare guests. Shen Daoyu, I heard from He Daoyu that you can make medium-grade talismans and seal amulets. Gong Daoyu came straight to the point. Shen Ping hesitated for a moment before saying with a smile, not bad. I was lucky enough to have some insights on the talisman path and have broken through to become a mid-level talisman master. Gong Daoyu's face lit up with joy and he said with a gentle attitude, "Well, next month I have a significant demand for intermediate-level talismans such as amulets, flame talismans, and frozen talismans. So I hope Shen Daoyu can help me make some. Don't worry, I will purchase them at the market price then." Shen Ping hesitated and said, "Gong Daoyu, I have heard that there will be an increase in the price of seal script next month." Gong Daoyu was stunned for a moment and couldn't help but look at Shen Ping. Although this news had almost spread in the local market, most of the people he could know were late-stage Qi practitioners and some mid-stage Qi practitioners with extensive connections. I didn't expect even low-level cultivators like Shen Ping to know. It seems that the opponent broke through the intermediate-level talisman even earlier than he imagined. Shen Daoyu has good news. The price of talismans and seals will indeed increase next month, and I will purchase them at the increased market price. What do you think? Gong Daoyu said slowly. Upon hearing this, Shen Ping readily agreed. After all, he is the only late-stage cultivator in Hanlu Lane who cultivates qi. If he rejects him, he will invisibly offend others. In the future, I may not be able to make it in Hanlu Lane. At the end of the month, most of the cultivators in the neighborhood and surrounding areas have learned the news. The prices of elixirs, talismans, and magical tools have started to rise one after another, especially the detoxification pill, which has been most affected. It can be said that it has skyrocketed like a rocket, and even the price of intermediate detoxification pills has continued to rise, causing Shen Ping to feel toothache. It's just that there's no other way. More than half of the demon beasts in the Yunshan swamp carry toxins, but fortunately they are scattered and their strength may not be strong deep down. So if you form a group during the middle stage of qi cultivation, you can take a risk and take a break. So more and more cultivators came to Hanlu Lane to worship talismans, and everyone knew that in a few more days, the supply of talismans in the neighborhood would definitely be in short supply. Fortunately, these cultivators are only in the middle stage of qi cultivation. Shen Ping directly said that he had agreed to Gong Daoyu, which can be considered as blocking them. 20 days have passed in a blink of an eye. The price of amulets has risen to 12 pieces of lower-grade spirit stones, and the price of flame talismans has also risen to 8 pieces of lower-grade spirit stones. Major stores in the neighborhood are out of stock. Manager Chen has sent a message to Shen Ping, saying that the amulets that have been stored have been sold and will be settled at the current price. Meanwhile, Manager Chen also expressed his desire to make a purchase. Shen Ping expressed his helplessness and recounted Gong Daoyu's visit once again. Manager Chen understood very well and stopped mentioning it. At this time, Jinyang sect officially announced the discovery of a large burning gold mine in Yunshan swamp, and summoned a large number of cultivators to explore and open up the land, providing many welfare incentives, among which the most attractive one to cultivators was the building foundation pill. Shen Ping was somewhat moved. For cultivators with average spiritual roots, the foundation pill is almost a necessary item for breaking through the foundation. Be cautious, be sure to be cautious. Now that I have golden fingers, there's no need to take risks. Continuously shouting in my heart. He suppressed this impulse. The next day, Gong Daoyu came to your door again. These are 20 amulets and 10 flame talismans, which are all my inventory. Gong Daoyu smiled and said, "That's enough. The transaction is completed." Shen Ping received over 300 spiritual stones in his storage bag. In the afternoon, he was just about to bury his head in making talismans and seals when he heard a knock on the door. "Shen Daoyu, congratulations on breaking through the intermediate-level talisman master." End of this chapter. Chapter 5. This is seized, for collection. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. This is seized, for collection, its matchmaker Zheng visited again after more than half a year. His face was filled with a standard warm smile, and his body was permeated with a unique rouge scent. There is no one in the nearby alley who doesn't know the matchmaker Zheng. So it's Tongdao, please come in quickly. Shen Ping warmly greeted. He was able to activate the golden finger, which is actually thanks to the other party's blessings. Matchmaker Zheng twisted her waist and walked into the cabin. She saw Wang Yun sitting by the edge of the bed and smiled. It seems that Yun'er's sister is doing well with Tongdao. Wang Yun quickly stood up, poured Ling tea for matchmaker Zheng, and respectfully said, Senior Zheng, please have some tea. Zheng matchmaker took the spiritual tea and sat on a wooden chair beside her, looking at Wang Yun. Tongdao, Yun'er's sister has been married to you for more than half a year, and it seems that her belly hasn't improved. You need to work hard and give birth to more bloodlines in order to continue the family. Wang Yun instinctively touched her stomach, her expression somewhat gloomy. For such a long time and with daily hard work, there should have been some movement in the stomach under normal circumstances. But it hasn't happened yet. She didn't say anything, but her heart was still anxious. If we cannot give birth to our husband's bloodline, then her existence has no value at all. Shen Ping smiled and said, It's only half a year, it's still early, don't worry. Zheng matchmaker shook her head repeatedly and said, Tongdao's idea is wrong. The earlier you have blood, the earlier you can cultivate it. Otherwise, in old age, even if your descendants are outstanding, it will be difficult for Tongdao to enjoy the benefits of Yuzhe. Shen Ping was speechless, but he understood the purpose of Zheng matchmaker's visit. Tongdao, if you have anything to say, just let me know. Zheng matchmaker no longer beat around the bush and said with a smile, Recently, there have been many cultivators who want to adventure in the Yunshan swamp, and there have been more battles and struggles. Many cultivators are afraid of their own lives, so they ask me to take care of their descendants. For my daughter's family, the best way is to find a reliable cultivator to shelter them. Tongdao has now broken through to become a mid-level talisman master, and his status naturally differs. How about, should we consider marrying another one? This time, I promise to find a Taoist couple with spiritual roots for Tongdao. Wang Yun's face immediately turned pale. If my husband had a Taoist couple, how would she get along as a mortal? Shen Ping did not immediately refuse. In fact, in the past 6 months, he has considered this issue. After all, the golden finger is related to double cultivation. The more people who practice double cultivation, the more experience they may gain in runes. However, his rune level is already improving too quickly, requiring sedimentation and concealment. That's why I kept enduring it. Seeing my husband, he remained silent. Wang Yun felt sad in her heart. Over the past 6 months, her husband's meticulous care have made her see him as her only reliance and emotional support. Cultivators and mortals are ultimately two worlds. Husband, the proposal made by Senior Zheng is reasonable. If husband can have a Taoist priest with spiritual roots, the probability of giving birth to bloodline descendants with spiritual roots in the future is also high. She said against her heart. Matchmaker Zheng quickly praised, It's still Yun'er's sister who can think it through and see far. As he spoke, he looked at Shen Ping and said, Tongdao, this girl with spiritual roots is in high demand. Now I can still find someone for Tongdao who is as obedient and sensible as Yun'er's sister, but it may not be the case in the future. Matchmaker Zheng deliberately emphasized obedience. Shen Ping coughed a few times and said, Tongdao, I've been quite busy lately and need to speed up the production of talismans and seals. I really don't have time. Let's talk about it later. Talking about marrying a Taoist couple in front of his wife may diminish his favorability. Once the matchmaker heard of the play, she stood up and smiled, Okay, then I won't disturb Tongdao. Send it out. The matchmaker lowered her voice and said, Don't worry, Tongdao. I will leave you a well-behaved and sensible one. After speaking, he twisted his butt and walked towards the next house. Shen Ping twitched his lips and turned around to see his wife's melancholic gaze. Yun'er, I. Wang Yun whispered, husband, I understand. I only hope that husband will have a Taoist couple in the future. Don't forget Yun'er service these days. Shen Ping quickly opened the virtual panel. Seeing that his favoritism had not diminished above, he breathed a sigh of relief and closed the door to his wife. He walked gently and said, Yun'er, rest assured. Even if there is a Taoist couple, I will still treat Yun'er as usual, and you are my first woman and also my wife. Upon hearing this, Wang Yun's face showed a smile again. Whether it is true or not, at least it indicates that the husband has her in his heart. For a moment, Shen Ping looked at the rune experience on the virtual panel and secretly thought to himself that at this speed, in half a year, he would be able to break through to become a top-quality rune master. Middle-grade talismans are more common in local markets. But high-quality products are much rarer. The lowest price for first-grade talisman seal script is above 3 medium-grade spirit stones. Taking advantage of the current rise in the price of talismans and seals, we need to seize the opportunity to earn spirit stones. Strive to purchase high-quality detoxification pills within 1 year. His body has been contaminated with venom for too long, and he needs a bottle to eliminate the venom. As long as it is removed, he can swallow the pill to increase spiritual power. Decades have passed again. The first batch of cultivators recruited by Jinyang's sect set off for Yunshan Swamp. Follow the main road to the edge of the neighborhood. You can see thousands of cultivators stepping on magical tools, turning into rainbow lights and disappearing into the sky. Most of these cultivators are practicing in the neighborhood, with the lowest being in the middle stage of qi cultivation. However, it is unknown how many will eventually return after entering the Yunshan Swamp. Although Shen Ping was eroded by the venom of the monster back then, he was lucky enough not to directly encounter the monster, otherwise he would have been a pile of fertilizer in the Yunshan Swamp now. Return to Fengshe. Shen Ping walked straight into the embroidered spring pavilion. The materials purchased last time have been depleted. Apart from those sold to Tongdao, there are still 12 amulets left, 6 flame amulets, and 3 light body amulets. Manager Chen warmly welcomed him. Nowadays, with the rise in prices of intermediate-grade seal script, the corresponding position of a Fu master like Shen Ping is also quite popular. Moreover, Shen Ping's production efficiency is higher than that of other high-quality talismans. Shen Dao, this is the remaining 134 inferior spirit stones from the last storage of the seal script. The amulet and flame talisman both double in value. Removing the materials costs a lot of money. Shen Ping took out the intermediate seal script from the storage bag. Manager Chen doesn't know how much he has traded with Tongdao, so he's not worried that the other party will see the success rate of his production. Say it again. He may also go to other stores to purchase materials. Seeing the seal script, Chen, the shopkeeper, had a brighter smile on his face. The inventory of the major stores in the neighborhood had long been sold out. Whoever had the talisman seal, the cultivator rushed in. Don't be fooled by the fact that we just left, but the next batch of Jinyang's sect has already started recruiting. And the focus of this recruitment is on the cultivation family, even recruiting from the main sect. After all, the large flame gold mine, although not the spirit stone mine, is also very precious. Magic tools and treasure materials have always been expensive. If Jinyang's sect can exploit extensively, the entire sect's financial resources will greatly increase. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Tongdao Zhongren. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. Tongdao Zhongren Henglu Lane. Go back to the cabin. Shen Ping took out the spirit stones from the storage bag and counted them. He had already accumulated 8 medium-grade spirit stones. Just in the past month, the net profit has reached 3 yuan. Now is the wind, don't miss it. And as long as Jinyang's sect continues to develop the flame gold mine, the prices of talismans and elixirs will not decrease. Although I have earned a lot, the price of detoxification pills has risen sharply. He expects that the price of talismans and detoxification pills will continue to rise when the results of the first group of cultivators taking the risk to pave the way are revealed. Wang Yun, who was tidying up the household chores, saw her husband come back and went to the talisman-making compartment. She couldn't help but advise, "Husband, don't be too tired." Shen Ping smiled and said, "It's okay, I'll cook more meat later." Wang Yun nodded and said, "Husband, I am not far from the first-class realm when practicing martial arts. I will be able to break through in 2 or 3 months." After hearing this, Shen Ping couldn't help but look happy. Wang Yun broke through to become first-class, and the daily pleasure of fish and water may increase once. "Yunner, come on." He clenched his fist. Wang Yun originally didn't know what this meant, but it was only after Shen Ping explained that she realized it was a sign of encouragement. "My husband, too." She returned in a clenched fist position. Its watery and tender appearance, combined with such movements, is quite silly and cute. Every time Shen Ping had an impulse to go up and pinch his face. At night, I made up a big meal. There was a knocking outside the door. Since Shen Ping broke through as a mid-level talisman master, there has been an increasing number of visits to cultivators. It used to be normal for a year without a monk coming to my door. "He Dao Yu." Shen Ping showed a hint of surprise. He Qin didn't come back later, except for the first visit he made when he moved nearby. The other party is Danshi. The social network is wider than that of a Fu master like Shen Ping. However, today's He Qin looks a bit disheveled, with no robe on his body. "Shen Dao Yu, can you borrow 20 inferior spirit stones?" He Qin awkwardly spoke up. Shen Ping was quite surprised and said, "He Dao Yu, you are an alchemist. 20 lower-grade spirit stones are not worth it." He Qin sighed and looked around, then lowered his voice, "I've been infatuated with a female cultivator from the Tianyin Pavilion in Fengshe recently. It took me a lot of money, and I had no choice but to borrow some spiritual stones from Shen Dao Yu. I see Shen Dao Yu marrying such a small and beautiful concubine, and I think he's also from the same path. Let me tell you, the female cultivators in the Yin Pavilion were all stunning, especially in that aspect, they were simply." He Qin said with a slightly lewd smile at the end. Shen Ping's face turned black. Tianyin Pavilion is a brothel and music hall. Most of the female cultivators inside have practiced the techniques of seduction and sexual intercourse, and some of them have a background in magic cultivation. But it can open up in the market with a considerable background. And that place has high consumption and is a famous sales cave in the neighborhood. Many cultivators who have no hope for the future will enjoy it and soon deplete their savings. But that's not the point. The key is how he became a like-minded person. Shallow. He advised, "He Dao Yu, it's better not to go to Tianyin Pavilion. These are 20 inferior spirit stones. For the sake of our neighbors, I borrowed them from you. It's just that our daily life is tight and there's nothing extra." He Dao Yu saw the spirit stone and his eyes lit up, "I understand. Turn around and leave." Looking at its back. Shen Ping shook his head slightly. A alchemist had reached such a level that it had to be said that the female cultivator in the Yin Pavilion was really impressive that day. "I don't know if I can gain talisman experience by practicing fish water joy with these women." He couldn't help but have such a thought in his mind. But it was quickly forcefully cut off. Those female cultivators are sucking on the bone and marrow. His will is not firm, but he cannot resist temptation. The incident with He Dao Yu is just a minor episode for him. Close the door. Shen Ping sat up and calmly absorbed the spiritual power of the spirit stone, suppressing the erosion of venom in his body. However, to his surprise, within 2 days, He Qin came to borrow money again. This time, Shen Ping Jian refused to lend and blocked the other party outside the house. Not much later, He Qin left immediately. The nun in the neighboring house pushed open the door and looked at the direction He Qin was leaving, disgusted, and said, "Shen Daoyu, this cultivator who is addicted to the Tianyin pavilion, you shouldn't lend him money. That's a meat bun that never comes back." Shen Ping understood why this neighbor disliked it, and their Taoist couple was a typical example. What Yu Daoyu said was reasonable. At that time, he only borrowed it for the sake of his neighbors, and he was also an alchemist. Sigh. We chatted for a while. He closed the door again. Winter has passed and spring has arrived. Another year has quietly passed. Shen Ping has reached the age of 43, which is still at the third level of qi cultivation and has no hope of building a foundation. But he has extremely strong expectations for the future. This day, he came to a shop in the neighborhood selling various martial arts and spells. Cultivation and magic are the foundation of a cultivator. But if you want to purchase high-end products, not only do you need a huge amount of wealth, but you also need to have networking channels. It is impossible to buy them in a neighborhood store like this. He is not here to practice martial arts. Shopkeeper, do you have any room skills here? The shop owner laughed and said, "Yes, of course there is." Quickly took out more than 10 books and placed them on the counter. These are all. If a Taoist wants to buy the double cultivation technique, I also have it, but the price is a bit higher. Shen Ping shook his head and said, "Forget the double cultivation technique. I can't afford it. Even the lowest level of double cultivation techniques are priced above high-quality detoxification pills." Carefully flipped through it. He chose a book called Joy in the Room. Just this one. The shopkeeper immediately said, 2 medium-grade spirit stones. It's too expensive. Shen Ping frowned. The shopkeeper smiled and said, "Friend, I am the only one in the neighborhood that sells this kind of book. Every book is obtained from a special channel, and the risk is high. It's normal for them to be more expensive. Moreover, there is a great demand for such books. If Taoists don't buy them now, they will be gone in a few days. These books have been processed, but they cannot be copied." Shen Ping was speechless. But he knew the shopkeeper was telling the truth. There are indeed quite a few demands of this kind. Although cultivators can rely on various medicinal herbs and food to maintain their bodies, if they do it too frequently, it can also cause a deficiency in qi and blood, damaging the foundation. And these types of books cannot compare to the technique of double cultivation, but they can stop loss and lock blood during joyful activities. Of course, it is not omnipotent, it can only reduce losses. In fact, even the advanced dual cultivation techniques in magic cultivation cannot allow cultivators to engage in unlimited pleasure. This purchase is not because Shen Ping feels that he has accumulated too much, but because his wife is not far from breaking through the first-class level of martial arts. In addition, matchmaker Zheng has been urging him to develop his golden finger. I gritted my teeth and still bought a book. Leave the store. He also purchased a lot of tonic herbs and meat, as well as essential items such as lingmi and lingcha, which he wouldn't dare to continue consuming before. 12 medium-grade spirit stones. Go back home. He habitually checked his storage bags, and in the past 2 months, his net income has reached 6 yuan for intermediate grade. The price of intermediate grade seal script in the market has not fallen, but it has not increased again. However, the price of high-quality detoxification pills is slowly rising. Nowadays, we need 27 medium-grade spirit stones, which are available at a price but not in the market, and cannot be found in major stores selling elixirs. Embroidered spring pavilion is also. It has long been out of stock. According to manager Chen, the main reason is the shortage of some materials for the detoxification pill. Currently, Jinyang sect has applied for scheduling from the main sect. I'll have to stay at home for a while now, and I can't sell any more runes and seals. He has been to the local market quite a few times in the past 2 or 3 months. Although he hasn't found any cultivators tracking him yet, he often walks by the river, so how can he not get his shoes on? End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Delivery to the door. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Chapter 7 Delivery to the door. The life of a cultivator is mostly dull, either practicing in seclusion or mastering various arts, knowledge, or proficiently using spells. There is very little time for adventure, and some cultivators rarely go out to hone their skills. Shen Ping has hardly left the city since the venom invaded his body. Low-level cultivators have no bottlenecks in cultivation, only a lack of resources. Even if it is the talent and aptitude of the 5-element pseudo-spiritual root, if the resources can keep up, there is still a possibility of building a foundation. You and your wife both practiced once and gained rune experience +2, current wife's favorability rate is 100, double cultivation bonus. 4. Fu Shi. First level intermediate, 8044/10,000, Shen Ping looked at the virtual panel. He has regained his habit of exercising 5 times in the past half-month. Having the skills of purchasing a house can reduce losses, and with the addition of daily supplements, adding a few more times is not a problem. However, considering Wang Yun's condition, he only maintained it 5 times. Mainly some special actions recorded in the secret script, which consume a lot of physical and mental energy. At the current speed, I will work hard for another 2 months to reach the breakthrough condition. Unfortunately, my cultivation is too low, and even if I break through, I won't be able to make high-quality talisman seals. Think of these. He couldn't help but sigh. The speed of accumulating wealth is still too slow. But for the sake of his own safety, he would rather slow down a bit than take any risks. Husband, why are you sighing? Did Yun'er serve you poorly? My wife's youthful and tender skin in my arms is full of redness. And she looked at her husband with a hint of unease on her face. During this period, her stomach remained motionless, and she couldn't help feeling anxious. All she could do now was do everything to please her husband. If you can't even do this well. She couldn't even lift her head herself. Shen Ping pinched his wife's face and said with a smile, Yun'er, don't think too much. I'm just thinking of something for my husband. Wang Yun breathed a sigh of relief and said, Husband, last time Senior Zheng came again, I think husband agreed. I also want to have an older sister so that we can serve husband together. She was completely overthinking it. Since it is inevitable for the husband to marry a Taoist couple, he can only take the initiative to accept it, and mentioning joint service is also to add value to his existence. Ordinary people who want to survive among cultivators must try to change themselves. This is the philosophy of survival that her father has always taught. Shen Ping's heart warmed slightly upon hearing this, and his wife was truly considerate and obedient. This matter is not urgent. Always think carefully. The next evening. The two have just prepared to eat. There was a slight knocking outside the door. Open it and take a look. The standard warm smile of matchmaker Zheng caught the eye. Beside her stood a girl in a green dress, with restlessness surging in her watery eyes. Shen Ping's face twitched. If this matchmaker didn't do business well, it would be unacceptable. Come in. When the matchmaker Zhang and the girl in the green dress walked into the room, he quickly glanced at his neighbors and closed the door as soon as he saw no one around. Wang Yun was momentarily taken aback when she saw the girl, and immediately understood what was going on. She warmly approached and greeted her, Senior Zhang, please take a seat. As he spoke, he went to pour Ling tea for matchmaker Zhang. Oh, Yun'er's younger sister is becoming more and more spiritual, and her life is getting better and better. This sumptuous dinner is probably worth 2 spirit stones, even cultivators in the middle of chi cultivation cannot bear it. The matchmaker once looked at the table full of meat, rice, and various dishes, and couldn't help but flash envy in her eyes. She ate 2 spirit stones in one meal. Too luxurious. The girl in a green dress standing next to her couldn't help but swallow. Yu Guang quietly glanced at Wang Yun, who was busy pouring tea, with deep envy in his heart. She followed her younger brother on the outskirts of the neighborhood, saving as much as possible every day. She was reluctant to even buy spiritual rice, let alone various meats and expensive vegetables containing spiritual energy. Is this the life of a mid-level talisman? Her eyes showed longing. Shen Ping coughed a few times and said, "Did Tongdao come this time?" Matchmaker Zheng reached out and pulled the girl in the green dress in front of her. "Tongdao, we can all be considered old acquaintances now. I won't beat around the bush. This girl is something I have always kept for you. She is well behaved and sensible. If you let her go west, she will definitely not go east. Several cultivators have intentions. If it continues to be delayed, I really can't guarantee that I can keep it." Shen Ping rolled his eyes in his heart. "I believe you're a ghost. If it's really in high demand." With the temperament of matchmaker Zheng, she had already been sent out. He just sensed it. The girl in the green dress has a very low cultivation level, only a layer of qi has been trained. Her appearance is sweet and charming, and she also has an indescribable resilience, which should be a frequent hardship. However, at this age, her spiritual aptitude must be very poor. Many monks also take wives and concubines based on their qualifications. There is little possibility of cultivating pseudo-spiritual roots, and marrying someone is purely a means of reproduction. If the previous market was good, such a girl doesn't lack the need for cultivators. But now most cultivators in the entire neighborhood are thinking of getting rich in the Yunshan swamp. They wouldn't even get married or take concubines. After all, life and death are unknown in adventurous journeys. If they just got married and died, then this wife and concubine might turn around to be someone else's. Therefore, Shen Ping speculated that the girl in front of him was likely in the hands of matchmaker Zheng. Seeing Shen Ping, he remained silent. The matchmaker once kicked the girl in the green dress. The girl's body trembled slightly and she quickly spoke up, "Shen, Senior Shen, I know everything. Please take me." Shen Ping was inspired. The sound is crisp and soft, and it's not even a clip placed in a past life. Those who rush to deliver money can queue up in a long queue. A decision was suddenly made in my heart. However, he pretended to frown and said, "Tongdao, don't you have any higher cultivation? In fact, with his current strength, it is more suitable to marry someone who has a higher level of qi. If their strength is high, they may lose both personal and financial resources." The matchmaker once chuckled and said, "Yes, of course there is. Like the widow who lives alone across from Tongdao, if you're interested, I'll get you a matchmaker." Shen Ping had no intention of marrying a widow, so he said, "All right, just her. If the price is too high, Tongdao should find other cultivators." Matchmaker Zheng had originally planned to ask for more, but considering the possibility of continuing cooperation in the future, she gritted her teeth and said, "So, a medium-grade spirit stone, she's yours." For a moment, Shen Ping escorted matchmaker Zheng out of the door. Before leaving, "Tongdao, don't miss inviting me for a banquet," said matchmaker Zheng with a smile. Shen Ping shook his head and said, "In this situation, the banquet will be avoided." Matchmaker Zheng didn't care either. She twisted her waist and swayed away, looking at its back. Shen Ping pondered to himself that the matchmaker who dared to take a low-level female cultivator out at night was definitely a ruthless character. However, upon reflection, doing this kind of business in the local market, without any means, had long been targeted by the robbing cultivator. Close the door. The darkness was immediately blocked outside. Under the shining crystal lamp. The room is bright inside. I used to be poor and reluctant to buy crystal lamps, but now I have become a mid-level talisman, so there is no need to save this little money. Although Shen Ping lives a frugal life, he is willing to spend money in some aspects. "What's your name?" Returning to Senior Shen, "My name is Bai Yueying." End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Taoist Couples. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8 Taoist Couples. Shen Ping nodded and smiled. Yun'er is right, by Dao Yu. Since you enter my house, you will be taken care of by me in the future. However, there is one thing I need to explain to you in advance. The girl in the green dress was restless. She is even more nervous than Wang Yun back then. Because he is a cultivator. The matchmaker once spent a lot on her. With constraints. As long as she dares to have any rebellion, Shen Ping can easily destroy her. Not to mention, there is a gap in cultivation between the two. By Dao Yu, let's eat first. Monks also need to eat grains and miscellaneous grains, and usually only before seclusion, they will swallow the Pai Gu Dan. Bai Yueying watched the delicious food on the table, her taste buds wriggling. Wang Yunru said in a soft voice, Senior Bai, there's no need to be cautious. From now on, we'll be a family. Yun'er, she is the wife, and you are the concubine. No matter what the gap in cultivation may be in the future, I hope you can always remember this. Wang Yun was immediately affectionate, with moist corners of her eyes. She is well aware of the meaning of her husband's words. Bai Yueying didn't expect Shen Ping to attach so much importance to an ordinary woman, which made her feel a bit at ease. She hurriedly said, Senior Shen, I will definitely remember. Alright, if we don't eat again, the dishes will cool down. After dinner. Shen Ping was not in a hurry to develop his own golden finger, but instead entered the compartment and focused on making symbols. Exercising during the day wastes time. He needs to make up for it in the evening. Both double cultivation and earning money must be balanced. We cannot neglect one aspect and lose the other. And Wang Yun and Bai Yueying finished packing up the dishes and sat on the edge of the bed, talking to themselves. As I gradually gained a general understanding of Shen Ping, Bai Yueying's cheeks were dizzy and shy. She didn't expect Senior Shen, a mid-level talisman, to be so strong in that aspect. Oh my goodness! How did Yun'er's younger sister handle it? She dare not imagine. At the beginning of the High Era, Shen Ping finished making talismans and sat down to absorb the spiritual stones to suppress the toxicity in his body. After completing all of this, it was already the end of the High Shi period. The night is very deep. Seeing my husband walk out of the compartment, Wang Yun skillfully stepped forward to pinch Shen Ping's shoulder and said, Husband, it's not early, it's time to rest. Don't make Yueying's sister wait in a hurry. Shen Ping glanced at the silhouette hidden inside the brocade quilt and gently grasped his wife's wrist. Yun'er, you have to work hard tonight, he said. There is only one bed in the room. And today is Bai Yueying's first time, and Wang Yun cannot share the same bed. Husband, hurry up and go. Wang Yun smiled and murmured. For a moment, Shen Ping felt the hot body inside the brocade quilt. No words. Bai Yueying officially became Shen Ping's concubine. Shen Ping eagerly opened the virtual panel. The golden font flickered above. Gold-based spiritual root qualification +2, wood-based spiritual root qualification +2, current favorability of Taoist couple. 60, bonus. 0, metal spirit root. Lower level, 324/1000, wood-type spiritual roots. Lower grade, 218/1000, see this. His eyes suddenly widened. Surprisingly, it can still enhance the spiritual root qualification. This golden finger is too awesome. You should know. The spiritual root talent of a cultivator determines the upper limit of cultivation. In theory, his 4 types of miscellaneous spiritual roots can only be cultivated until the middle stage of qi cultivation. Without elixirs, he will remain stagnant. Even if qualified, if the foundation is to be built in the future, there will be almost no entry in the future. Unless there is a great chance. But now he can actually obtain spiritual root improvement, which means that as long as he continues to accumulate, his gold and wood double spiritual roots are highly likely to reach the ultimate level in the future. Ultimate Spirit Root. This is pitifully rare in the entire state of Wei. Even though he has other spiritual roots, he still has excellent talent and his cultivation speed will continue to accelerate. It can be said. The enhancement of spiritual root qualifications will completely change his future limit. Ha! Shen Ping took a deep breath. Forcefully suppressed the excitement within. Until early morning. Inside the brocade quilt. Heat transpiration. Shen Ping looked at his sweet and charming face and whispered, Yueying, from today on, you will be my Taoist couple. Bai Yueying nodded shyly. He is truly a cultivator. Even if he only practices one layer of qi, his physical strength is not comparable to that of Wang Yun in the past. Get out of bed. Go to the corner and use magic to clean your body. Only 2 people can dress properly. Wang Yun slept in the kitchen all night last night. When she heard the commotion, she opened her eyes and yawned, Husband, wake up. After speaking, she realized that she was not in bed and couldn't help but burst into laughter. Shen Ping walked forward with a smile and said, Yuner, it's hard. Today I'll cook. Take Yueying out for a walk and get familiar with the surroundings. Remember not to go too far. The days in the gentle countryside always pass quickly. Another month has passed in the blink of an eye. Bai Yueying gradually integrated into this small family. The time has come to April. The spring breeze blows. The withered branches and leaves of the jujube tree outside the house have sprouted tender buds. The distant bare mountain peaks are full of greenery, making people feel comfortable to see. In the past, Shen Ping never paid attention to such delicate details. But now the future is promising. His gaze was filled with appreciation for the world. Wow! Feeling the lush spring breeze. The neighbor next door splashed a bath water in the wind and joked, Shen Daoyu is now full of spring breeze. He has married 2 wives and concubines in a row, and life is very comfortable. Shen Ping hurriedly said, You're joking. I'm just taking a break from my busy schedule. As for the 2 wives and concubines, they're just trying to continue the family. Sigh, after all, building a foundation is hopeless. Yu Daoyu suddenly stopped mentioning this topic and said, Shen Daoyu, you often make talismans in the room. I'm afraid you don't know the news outside. Gong Daoyu from Hanlu Lane has fallen. Shen Ping was suddenly surprised and said, Gong Daoyu fell. Gong Daoyu is the only late-stage qi practitioner in Hanlu Lane, and his fall has a significant impact. Firstly, the safety of Hanlu Lane will become a problem. Over the years. The main reason why Jie Xiu doesn't often stare at Hanlu Lane is that Gong Daoyu, a righteous cultivator, is intimidating. Is the news true? He quickly asked. Yu Daoyu nodded and said, It's been widely circulated a while ago. His cousin Su Daoyu moved out of Hanlu Lane overnight. I heard she went to live in the neighborhood. Not only that, but more than half of the first group of cultivators who went to the Yunshan swamp to clear the way died, which shook many people. Now, many of the third group of cultivators have started to retreat. However, the price of Fengshe Fuzhuan has risen again. She sighed and said, The days ahead will be difficult. Shen Daoyu, if you are a mid-level talisman, be careful. Shen Ping casually replied a few words before returning to the room. He opened the messenger. This is Manager Chen from Shichuan Pavilion. I asked about the matter of the Yunshan swamp, and it is indeed similar to what Taoist you said. Most of the cultivators who went on an adventure to pave the way died this time, but Jinyang's sect increased the welfare conditions, especially increasing the number of foundation building pills to 3. No wonder the price of seal script continues to rise. Shen Ping's face was solemn. Most cultivators have an adventurous spirit in their bones, and the pursuit of opportunities to break through oneself has long been a deeply ingrained concept. If you are not qualified and still afraid of death, then don't expect to build a foundation, don't expect longevity. Now that Emperor Jingyang has taken out 3 foundation building pills to stimulate, most cultivators, even if they know the danger, will still go without risking their lives. With the stimulation of Jingyang's sect, cultivators in the later stages of practicing qi and fengshui will definitely take a chance. Those robbing cultivators won't be staring at the remaining low-level cultivators in the neighborhood for now. But don't be careless, and be more cautious when going out in the future. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Spiritual Root Breakthrough, Seeking Collection. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The source has no content or has errors. Chapter 10. Too Cowardly. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Too Cowardly for a moment. Shen Ping's face couldn't help but show a happy expression. Just now, he tried to cultivate the next family transmission technique, and the speed of spiritual power passing through the meridians increased several times. According to this situation, as long as you continuously improve your spiritual roots, you may not need to eliminate toxicity, and your cultivation can break through to the middle stage of qi cultivation. The future is predictable, the future is predictable. He danced excitedly. In his 40s, he is like a child. But it was only when he heard hurried footsteps outside that he quickly calmed down his emotions. My wife and concubines have returned. Wang Yun had a hint of panic on her face. What's wrong? Shen Ping asked subconsciously. Bai Yueying said, the body of a cultivator has appeared in the Hongshe River, bleeding profusely. His body has been stripped naked, so it must have been done by the robbing cultivator. Upon hearing this, Shen Ping furrowed his brow. The Hongshe River is not far from Honglu Alley and is the only river north of the main road in the neighborhood. Usually, lower-level cultivators go to this river to wash their clothes, and even senior cultivators occasionally go there to clean. Moreover, there are 2 alleys to the north where many cultivators live. Therefore, corpses rarely appear in the Hongshe River. Robbing, repairing, killing, and looting will not leave the body in the Red Stone River. Don't panic. This kind of thing may just be a coincidence. In the future, try to go out during the day with other nuns. Shen Ping cautioned. It is inevitable for cultivators to produce various physiological waste when eating grains and miscellaneous grains. Only when they reach the later stage of qi cultivation and have strong spiritual power in their bodies, will this situation gradually decrease. However, when Jin Yangzong built the houses on the outskirts of fengshui, he did not consider the issue of monks eating, drinking, and urinating, so things like fetching water, doing laundry, and pouring urine were inevitable. The widows living alone next door often pour their bathwater directly into the streets, and some monks are not good enough to even urinate on the streets. Every summer when it's hot, the smell is unpleasant and there are also mosquitoes and flies bothering them. Shen Ping has long been accustomed to these things. Wang Yun and Bai Yueying nodded one after another. However, it hasn't been 2 days yet. The body of the cultivator appeared again in the Red Stone River, and she was also a female cultivator with a tragic death. She had been tortured before her death and her lower body was blurry. I heard she's a solitary widow from Hongshe Lane. Shen Ping ran into Yu Daoyu when he went out, and she scolded, who was the one who suffered 1,000 swords. He did such an immoral thing, killing and killing. What's the point of always going into the river? Don't let me catch you. Shen Ping hurriedly said, Yu Daoyu, keep quiet to avoid getting into trouble. Yu Yan is also a widow who lives alone, but her cultivation level of qi cultivation is fearless and disdainful. She said, Shen Daoyu, you are really timid like a mouse. What's there to be afraid of? Humph, those who can do this must have low cultivation. They just want to use the pitiful state of the cultivator's body to cause everyone's panic and then fish in the muddy water. Shen Pinglian repeatedly said yes, and he also agreed with such speculation in his heart. If advanced robbing cultivators take action, they will be basically clean and tidy. Afterwards, they will also use corrosive venom or fireball spells to deal with corpses. If there is no time to deal with them, they will also be thrown in the distance, and it is impossible to intentionally throw them into the Red Stone River. Shen Daoyu, do you still have a talisman? Yu Yan suddenly asked. Shen Ping was taken aback and looked at Yu Yan. What do you want to do, Yu Daoyu? You don't plan to expose that bandit cultivator, do you? Yu Yan pouted and said, do you have one? Shen Ping was speechless and said, yes, it's just that you need to think twice, as it's very dangerous to engage in the practice of robbing and cultivating martial arts. A slight mistake. I want as many as you have, Yu Yan interrupted directly these days. Shen Ping made 5 talismans, so he decided to take them all out. After thinking about it, he decided to take out 2 sinker talismans and frozen talismans. These 2 types of talismans and seals are not as expensive as bodyguards and flames in the local market, and their production is also more complex, so they are sold less in the local market. But the 2 types of seal script are very useful for fighting and fighting. Yu Yan's eyes lit up and she said, Shen Daoyu, I didn't expect your talismanship to reach this level. You can even make sinker talismans and frozen talismans. It's really impressive to see you all in 3 days. Shen Daoyu quickly waved his hand and said, Yu Daoyu is joking. I have been breaking through the intermediate level talisman master for less than a year, and making amulets is not easy. How can I make ground traps and freezes? I bought them myself in the local market as a backup. Yu Yan suddenly realized. She didn't doubt this either, after all, she had been neighbors with Shen Daoyu for several years. He was always cautious and could stay in the house for several months. Buying talismans and seals to protect himself was too normal. Just follow the local market price. She took out the spirit stone from the storage bag and handed it to Shen Ping, then returned to the room. Another half-month has passed. The corpses of cultivators have reappeared in the Red Stone River. The monks in the surrounding alleys, especially widows who live alone, are in great danger and rarely go out during the day. Shen Ping was worried about his wife and concubines getting into trouble, so he accompanied them to urinate during the day. The next day late at night. Just as he finished exercising with his wife and concubines, he heard urgent footsteps coming from outside the door, and his heart immediately lifted. There is a formation inside the room. There are still many mid-level talismans and seals. If there is a fierce battle, cultivators in the middle stage of chi cultivation may not necessarily have an advantage. But the footsteps quickly crossed the door and stopped at the next door, blinking and disappearing. There are amplification notes pasted at the door of his house. He can hear everything within 3 meters of the house and is not affected by soundproofing. Is it Yu Daoyu? What is she doing outside in the middle of the night? Shouldn't you really be looking for that robbing cultivator? Shen Ping was puzzled and asked 3 questions in his mind. And for the next 4 or 5 days, he could hear footsteps outside the door in the middle of the night. This day, when I was urinating with my wife and concubines, I saw many cultivators surrounding the Red Stone River. Did someone die again? He frowned tightly, but did not go over to watch. When I returned, I heard the discussions of the monks. That's great, the robbing repair has received its retribution. I don't know which previous generation came forward to kill it. It's so satisfying. Shen Ping felt a slight movement in his heart, secretly thinking that it might not have been Yu Daoyu who killed him. He asked his wife and concubines to return to the house while he admired the jujube trees outside. Not long ago. Yu Yan goes out and splashes bath water. Cultivators usually have basic spells such as dust cleansing, and a low-level cleansing talisman that has not been practiced can clean dirt from their bodies. However, this is because Taoists have always preferred to take baths and pour bath water every 2 days. The spring, summer, and winter have never changed. Oh, Shen Daoyu is specifically waiting for me to splash shower water. Yu Yan saw Shen Ping absent-mindedly admiring the jujube tree, and occasionally glanced in the direction of her own room. She joked, "Does it smell good? How does it taste compared to your 2 wives and concubines?" Shen Ping's face twitched and he tentatively asked, "Yu Daoyu, I heard that the robbing cultivator who harmed widows has died." Yu Yan said nonchalantly, "If you die, then you'll die. When I say Shen Daoyu, you don't think I killed you, do you? I don't have that ability." As he spoke, he turned around and returned to the house. Shen Ping shook his head and immediately burst into laughter as he cared about what he had done. No matter who killed it. It has nothing to do with oneself. Return to the room and look at the virtual panel, where the rune experience has exceeded the breakthrough condition. High-quality talisman. Other talisman cultivators, even those with talent, require decades of hard work and accumulation, while I have only activated the golden finger for just over a year, but I have gone from low grade to high grade all the way. End of this chapter.